Hello and welcome to the Sensual Being podcast with myself, your host, Jolene Whiting. I have been a pole dance teacher for nearly 20 years. I'm also a yoga instructor, and my favourite pastimes are connecting to my own sensuality, connecting with the world, and connecting with animals as well. In this podcast, you'll find new and inventive ways of how you see yourself, connecting yourself with others, and also how you see and view the world around you. This episode is quite the thinker. We talk about authenticity, sovereignty, and love, and how those three things are getting lost in our lives, but ways of thinking about how to get them back. Hello, sensual being, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm ever grateful to have your presence today. So thank you so much for joining me. Today's episode is coming to you from summer. We have summer in the UK. The chances are by the time I put this out in a couple of weeks, it may not be the summer. But there is no reason why we have to define ourselves by the season. So just make sure that you are happy in your own state of mind and not relying on the sun and the sunshine to actually make you feel happy, because happiness comes from within, and we can be so conditioned by the weather in that kind of way. So just a little something there before we dive into the episode. So today's episode is going to be about three things: authenticity, sovereignty, and love. So these have come through very strong today. I did a load of chanting this morning, and this is what came through at the end of it. And it hit me that these three things are things that are getting lost in our society, lost in our modern world, and it's getting harder to bring ourselves back into these states. And you're not alone if this is you, because it has also been me, and it will probably still continue to be me. This isn't a one-time thing that you do and hey presto, you're done. No, this takes work, and unfortunately, the more we are living in the modern world, which you and me both are right now, because we're both here listening to this, the more we have got to tap in to our own inner power and our own inner wisdom to actually realize this stuff. It doesn't just magically happen. If we think it magically happens and we take it for granted, we'll get complacent, and then the modern world will just do its number on us. We'll be distracted, we'll unappreciate our lives, and we will blame everybody else for what's happening to us. And it's when we realize life is happening for us, that is where the magic is. That is where the power is. And that is what I want to talk to you about today. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is authenticity. And you might be thinking, yeah, but what the hell do you mean by that? So what I mean by it is how you choose, very important word there, how you choose to show up in the world. Are you being authentic to yourself? Or are you going along with the status quo, with what you should be doing? Maybe you've got qualified in something, therefore that's what you're doing. Maybe you've always done something, therefore that's what you do. This is what I mean for you to look at. And if that is true and you're happy, fine. Absolutely fine. If you're doing something, maybe you got qualified 40 years ago for something at university and you're still doing it now, but you really thrive in it. Brilliant. But there are also people who did the same situation as you, who maybe didn't want to do it in the first place and they did it anyway, or maybe they've just changed their mind and they don't want to do it anymore. So however you're showing up is very relevant to you, and you only ever take in life what resonates for you. You do not have to take on every single thing that you hear or that you see or that you read. You must remain aligned to yourself with knowing this type of thing. So you can listen to podcasts, mine, other people's all day long, but you have to take what works for you in that moment. And it's a bit like, have you ever sort of, maybe like sometimes you've read a book or something and you're like, yeah, no, I wasn't really fussed about that. I don't know what they're going on about. And then maybe a few years later you read the same book and you're like, this is everything. Oh my God. It's finding the right times for the right things for you. So that's very much what this episode is definitely about today. So when we talk about authenticity and how you are showing up in the world, and this is how, what I've just said before is how it gets lost. So if we have just gone along with the narrative, maybe your parents have pushed you into doing something when you were younger and you've just done it to please them. Or maybe you didn't even realize you were doing it to please them until you've got older. Or maybe you've just realized now. This stuff is huge. And because of the way we are, we as human beings are very easily conditioned. Okay. And that's great in ways, because generally we don't want to go out and murder people. We are conditioned to not do that. Brilliant. I'm all for conditioning in this sort of way, brilliant. So we are all conditioned, most of us, to queue up when we get to a supermarket checkout, not just try and push our way to the front. Brilliant. Again, conditioning, great. But it can have the negative effect as well. And like when you go through school and you think that is how you need to be when you leave school, and you have to pick something that borders on a qualification, a certification that you got in school. So maybe you'll go and do maths at college, and then you'll do something else off the back of that when you go to university. And particularly when we look at things like creative arts and dance or anything like that, a lot of that is very put down, don't do that, it's not a proper job. I've made a whole career out of being a dance teacher for 20 years, so I know it can be a proper job, depending on what your terminology of proper is. So it's knowing that there is more, and you are never too old to learn this, and also you're never too young to learn this either, to know that how much control over your life and your future that you have. There will be certain things that will happen in your life, and depending on what you believe or not, my view is very much on the spirit of, we pick the sort of life experiences that we want to have before we come into this realm. And then when we come into this realm, we go through our life and we will experience certain things at certain times, both happy and sad, challenging, easy. We will experience those things that we set out to do. That may be hard for some people to hear. And again, you take what resonates with you. I'm just sharing a personal belief. It is not something that I'm about to put onto you that you have to believe this. It's a belief. I don't know, but it's what my heart and my soul keeps telling me, is we pick and choose certain experiences that we want to experience in the human form, because being here as a human being is a complete gift, and we are not here for very long. Some people really not very long, but we are not here for very long. We literally just dip our toes into the earth and then we're off again. We are really not here for that long. So to be able to come back home to ourselves whilst in this human form is so very, very important in our lives. And it's not something that everyone will do. And that's okay too. Not everyone was meant to. So if you're walking around feeling like you've had this spiritual awakening and other people around you just don't get it, that's okay. They don't have to get it. The only person that has to understand it, to a certain extent understand it, is you. Okay, and don't think that that makes you a loner or an outcast or anything like that. We can all learn from each other. We can all still be friends with one another. It's a bit like people who have different political views. let's not really get me started on that, but different political views, but they're still friends. Because at the end of the day, friendship is much stronger than those types of beliefs. And it's the same as this. So you have to know that whilst you click with people and you're friends with them, that's fine, even if they are not on the same level as you, because you'll very rarely find anyone on the exact same level of where you are in your life. It just doesn't happen. So we need to be able to meet each other where we are in this moment, which is why you get different friends as you go throughout your life, and that's fine too. And you click with different people at different points in your life, and that's okay too. But having the power and empowerment of yourself to show up as who you are and who you want to be, that's the authenticity that I'm talking about. So you have to be able to go against the norm to become who you want to be. I mean, my life doesn't look like a lot of what I would deem as normal life on paper. But then I would argue that the people who do look like they've got a normal life, when they write it down on paper, a secure job and a partner, maybe they're married, maybe they've got children and stuff like that. And they probably think that their life isn't normal either, because we all have things that happen to us that almost isolate us in our minds to other people, but actually we are all having a shared experience here. So to have that confidence, I think it is, to be able to live your life your way is so, so important. If you don't want to take life quite so seriously as somebody else, that's fine. That's fine. But having the confidence to actually do your life your way will make you show up in the most authentic way that is relevant to you. And it's okay if that changes along your life, that you stop doing things that you once did and now you're doing completely new things. Beautiful. That's the beauty of life, to experience different things. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is sovereignty. Sovereignty over your body, your own well-being. And this, again, oh my gosh, this is something that is getting lost, particularly very much in recent years, like the recent, say since 2020, since then, this is getting lost because we are putting the responsibility of our well-being outside of us. We are blaming somebody else if we get ill. We are not taking control over what we are eating. We are consuming so much more processed food than we ever did before. And it's hilarious when you think of an alternative way of eating is eating simple food. Like simple food that's not really processed, maybe eating some of it raw, cooking from scratch yourself, eating like grass-fed beef that you buy from the local farm shop. This is considered alternative. And I don't know about you, if you've ever thought about this, but surely the alternative is to be eating all the highly processed stuff. The stuff that maybe doesn't even look like food. You look at cereal, it doesn't even look like food. It's so far removed from the actual food, the actual original source. It's not right to be labelled as alternative just for eating clean, And this is where we are losing the sovereignty, because people like this, like me, maybe like you, who are choosing to eat a certain way that isn't buying all the cheaper food, the ready-made food for every single meal. I'm not saying you won't ever do it, but you're not indulging in as many takeaways or any takeaways. Maybe you're not drinking alcohol. Oh my God, alcohol, that is one, isn't it? Have you ever, this is me, and it's been me for a year and a half now. I haven't touched any alcohol. And it's mad, because if I go out with anybody, they're like, oh, well, you can have one won't hurt. And the amount of energy it takes for me to say no. And it's like, Why is that so hard? And it is. So I can understand people who are losing the sovereignty over their own well-being, because it's hard. It's hard to be up against people to say, oh no, I don't want that, thank you. Oh, it won't hurt you. And you're like, no, I don't want it. It's actually very hard to do. So there's a lot of pressure to live our life, particularly when it comes to our health, to live our life in a certain way, to follow a narrative, to go against what your body tells you to do. It is hard. It is hard. And this is why we are losing sovereignty over ourselves. And this is why, if I can get you to realize this, then you can try and bring it back into yourself, because it's yours. It's no one else's. It's your body. It's your life. We get to live it our own way. You know if something is good for you, and you know if you want it or not. It's a bit like, have you ever had food poisoning? And you know what made you ill. Sometimes you just know, don't you? You're like, oh, it was that. Oh gosh. And you can't say how you know. You just know. There's a certain inner knowing, literally a gut instinct, that your body goes, it was that. This is the intuition to tune into, literally your gut instinct. They say your gut is like your second brain. It knows. It knows a hell of a lot if you tune into it. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about, the third one, the last one, I'm sure there's more, but these are the three for today, is love. Love can take on many forms, and love is something that's getting lost. It's getting lost in a lot of ways, in the sense of like separation, labeling other humans as this and that. And I'm not saying you're labeling, I'm saying it's coming as a whole. You know, particularly when we look at the pronouns, particularly when we look at race, we are being separated. And I'm not down with it, because I don't believe that any human being is any different or any less special than I am. And if I start to go down the route of thinking that they are less special than I am creating separation. And that is just not. It's not who I am. And it does not sit right. But there's so much of this going on. People are literally separating themselves by trying to label themselves. I'm not saying, it's interesting, right? Because I'm not saying on one level that we are all exactly the same. Because we're not. If you do meditations with me, you know most of the time I end up saying we're unique and wonderful exactly as we are. We are unique. That is true. But we are human. That is true. So we are the same on that level. Okay? So I'm not trying to say, it's very hard. You must take this with the pinch of salt that I'm giving you. You must know that you are unique, but we are also equal. Okay? And I'm going to say something now that is going to be a little bit controversial. I feel that with a lot of what is going on in the world, particularly right now, is heartbreaking and disgusting. It's absolutely brutal what is happening within humanity, and it's humans on humans that are doing this. Now, a lot of people send their love and compassion out to the victims. I actually have a different view on this, and I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, and I'm not saying you have to agree with me or do it, but I'm giving you another angle here, an angle which is how I say that love is getting lost. I feel that if we can send out love, I'm not saying you have to love these people, by the way. I'm saying if we can send out love to these people who are doing the bad things, I think the world would be different. I think we put so much energy into the victims, but we need to go to the source. We need to send our love out to the people who are doing the wrong. Now, please know that I'm not saying we need to love them. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if we send the love out, then if they can find their way back to love, do you think they would carry on doing what they're doing? Because I don't think they would. I think all these people, however high up, who are doing it, who are orchestrating it, the people who are physically doing it, if they could come back to love, because you cannot tell me or convince me they are coming from a place of love. I will never ever believe that. They may be coming from a place of, I'm going to call it brainwashed religion, in the sense of if you do this, God will love you. That is so far removed from what God would ever want. That's so far removed. It's not true. So this is what I'm saying. It might be coming from religion, but it isn't coming from spirit. And it's certainly not coming from love. But this is how we move into the golden age of the world. I literally feel like doing this episode and talking to you about this, and I haven't really shared this with many people because this subject is so sensitive. It's so sensitive. And I feel that too. But if you're listening to this podcast and you've got this far in it, I hope that you're open enough just to hear me on this. But I feel like if we can come at this from a point of love, things would change. And so many things would change in our life. But sometimes I literally feel like saying this on this podcast with one episode going out into the world, is it enough? But it has to be, because the right people have to listen to it. Because it's such a big thing. You know, moving into this golden age, if you are a light worker, or however you want to perceive your spiritual work within yourself, within the world, your place in the world, if you were putting this energy out, you might feel like just you thinking it is not enough. It is, because the power of thought carries so much energy. It really, really does. You know those people that you just sort of come across and they are just glowing, and you can't explain what it is, but they're glowing. This is the power of thought. It radiates out from your body and it becomes your state of being, which is why the more you can lift yourself up, which is going to be cheesy now, with love and light, that is what you portray out. So you imagine a world where everybody does this. Then you're going to see some changes. So this is what I mean about love. It's on a very big scale. It almost feels too big. But if we can radiate out as much love as possible, then hopefully it will really catch on. And if you feel like, yeah, but how is me thinking about this in my own little house going to make any difference? It does, because I'm going to go on another tangent here by saying, have you ever thought about somebody and then they've rung you or messaged you? They weren't even in the same house as you. They maybe weren't even in the same country as you, but you thought about them and then they messaged you. That thought, even if they didn't realize you did that, that thought, 99% sure, has traveled to them and then they've reacted on it or responded to it. So this is the power that I'm trying to say that we have. Also, I can't remember off the top of my head now, but there have been meditations, massive scale group meditations done in areas where there had been so much crime. And then during a month of doing these meditations and all these people gathering to put this energy out, the crime rate has gone down. And there's been more than one study on this, because I've read certain bits of this over the years. This is the power of thought. The power behind the energy of those thoughts are so strong. If we allow ourselves the right to actually tune into it. Because there's so much in this world that wants to keep you and me distracted, to ridicule us for believing in ourselves, to put ourselves down if we boast. All these things are created to diminish our own inner power. And this is what I want you to think about tapping into more, is your own self-worth, your own inner power, by going into how you show up, the authenticity of your life, the responsibility on your wellness and your health, your sovereignty of your own body. And then also love, radiating love out into your life, asking yourself in challenging situations, what would love do here? And actually allowing yourself to not feel separated from other people just because they don't get you or they don't believe the same thing you do. That is no reason to feel separated from anybody else. We need to come together as more community, as humanity, and in doing so, we will lift each other up and be there more for each other. Even if it's on a spiritual level that maybe you don't even quite understand just yet, and neither do I, and that's okay too. We are here, we are grounded here in the now to experience being human together. I hope you've enjoyed that episode. I very much enjoyed unraveling that with you. And as always, remember to lead through your life with your heart and to live with intention. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this episode, please do share it with your friends and on social media. If you have the time to rate or review this podcast, I'd be ever so grateful. If you'd like to follow me on Instagram, you can find me at Jolene Sensual Being. The links to my YouTube and to sign up to my mailing list will be in the show notes as well. I look forward to speaking with you again very soon.